AI can boil the ocean in terms of like the amount of data that it scrapes and ingests. But if you just let it do what Google Crawler does and sort of go infinite, it'll cost more than it pays. Yeah, like the amount of data out there for events is huge. When a new like local bar appears with a new open mic night, there's no obvious way for AI to discover that that exists now. So and Google has the same problem. Like people think of Google as the authoritative index, but it's definitely possible to have something that never appears on Google.
This is Small Press, Big Ideas, a podcast about the business of local news in the United States. I'm your host, Paul Gawartz. Small Press, Big Ideas is about the opportunities and challenges that local news publishers are facing for their businesses. I'll sit down and talk with journalists, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and more in the local news industry to find out what's working, what isn't, and how the local news ecosystem can innovate and flourish in the 21st century. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by my friend Brian Feister. Brian is a software engineering lead in a big tech company, and he's also the founder of Meet Near Me. And he's got some interesting stuff going on in this kind of world that the folks I talk to on this podcast. So Brian, thanks for coming on the show, man. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's exciting to connect with other folks who are, I think, trying to help publishers just like I am, and so I think there's a lot of overlap there.
Cool. Let's dive right into that. How are you trying to help publishers? Could you talk about Meet Near Me, like your thinking that kind of brought you to the idea, and just I'll let you talk about it. I'll chime in if I have anything.
Yeah. If I try to keep it short, so it started like 2 years. Well, it maybe started 15 years ago. I worked on a WordPress, a company that was building a WordPress plugin, and that plugin was trying to do what I'm doing with Meet Near Me, which is to gather events from many places into one place. And their idea was, well, if everybody installs the WordPress plugin, then we'll be able to aggregate all that data. The problem is that, as we know from Beehive and Substack and all the other CMS platforms, not everybody's on WordPress. So fast forward 13 years, 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to try to build this as a test for, I had a bunch of mentees in the software engineering space, and I wanted to just like do a project together with them. And that's kind of how it started, very grassroots, because it was just, can we build a tool that will aggregate this data for ourselves? And then from there, I had a former business partnership where we sold a lot of tickets, like I think almost $20,000 worth of tickets. So we kind of did what Eventbrite did. And now I'm back around to the original vision. And so now we're looking to help publishers by basically, so I spoke to a publisher who has a newsletter that has about 1 million subscribers. And he was saying that, interestingly, the number one engagement touch point in his newsletters is events, that people primarily are interacting with that. And I've heard that anecdotally from a bunch of other people. It seems like a pretty common sentiment. And so from my perspective, when publishers want to improve their offerings so that it's more sticky, people have like a recurring reason to come back to the newsletter or to your website. If it's a traditional publisher like a local newspaper, that's a primary value. And so I'm trying to gather all that data into one place and then syndicate it, or give publishers the ability to syndicate it so they can put and embed code on their site and have those events appear there. I have tools also to make it easy to just export those to a newsletter that you have going out.
Excellent. The stickiness of events is great. I had I think it was Jonathan Keeling from the Institute for Nonprofit News on, and we were talking about how great like events and like high school sports are. And I think he had this clip I put out that did really well. And he was like, that's kind of been the dirty secret of the news industry for years. He said, not everybody's a news hound, but you want to see how how your kid's school's football team did, or you want to see like when the parade is this weekend. And that's how you get people building the habit, coming back and everything. And so, this kind of...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what you're doing.
And to that point, I guess I'll just,
You good?
dancing there a bit, but I I was gonna say, to that point, one of the interesting things that I'm trying to do is to gather event data like the high school sports stuff, because if you look at Eventbrite and Meetup, some of the competitors for what I'm doing, they don't have any interest in that kind of data. And to me, that's what makes a community. Like from a sort of a grassroots perspective, it's not just something that you sell tickets to or that kind of thing like the other platforms.
Excellent. So, who would like meet near me? I mean, you kind of talked about there. You talked about publishers. Who would like? Who's it for? I guess. And
Mm,
the show is primarily talking to local media people, local
yeah,
newspapers, local
yeah,
newsletters, etc.
yeah.
I mean, are there other use cases for it? And like, what does it look like from if I'm a publisher and I'm looking to integrate this? What's it look like on my end? If I say I'm not a technical person, can you go to that a
Yeah,
bit? Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So let's say you have a WordPress site, right? It's going to allow you to put in some HTML. All you need to do is to drop that HTML into your website and you get the functionality. It'll just appear on your website. So that's kind of how the functionality works. And it's geared for non-technical folks for sure. So it's not something that you need to know a lot about technically. When we talk about small, there's a question around how small organizations might be. There's a range of smallness. And so if you have like a web developer working on your website, they can help to customize that appearance with some CSS if people know about CSS. But we're earlier stages, and so I'm happy to like help people out with that. I've been writing CSS for 20 years. So because it's kind of a one and done. Once it matches your website, then you kind of move on and leave it. So, but anyway, all that to say, uh, yeah, that's kind of where we are with it. But the idea is you can go draw on a broader pool of events, and then you can draw on a smaller pool. And one of the key things that I didn't talk about, you don't have to be technical to understand this, but one of the things I'm trying to do is make it so that you can add a bunch of links and then we ingest the data from those places. So that could be Facebook, that could be Meetup, Eventbrite. And so the idea is that this is public data, like from a legal perspective, an event's considered a fact. It's not a something that you can protect or copyright. And so we help you to gather that data together. You might know of some places where, maybe the local Parks and Recreation Department for Austin, Texas. It's an example of something that there's a link on Facebook and we can pull from that. That's a thing we actually do. And so there's that data which you can add for yourself based on your own knowledge. And then we have an offering for larger publishers, maybe like newsletters and stuff that costs more. And we do it all for you, like with real people. There's a person who's a researcher who's actually researching your region and actively going out and finding this stuff. But the cool part is that the automation I've built in means that once you do it once, it's set forever rather than having to kind of go out and search the web every day for new events. You get the benefit of automatically checking all of the previous URLs that you've added to the system, essentially. So the whole point is about reducing toil because that part, the researching part, is the burden on publishers. And so we make it so that whatever research you do, whether it's us or you find it once and then it's continually checked. And so whenever somebody posts events on that page, it'll come in automatically.
Nice. That's and that is the pain point you're solving. It's like so difficult to track all this stuff down from different. I have like a curated kind of weekly newsletter every Thursday,
Hmm.
which is not really geographically targeted, but it's like
Yeah.
it's a bit of a task going through and digging out relevant stuff and
Yep.
check going through it and everything like that. Are you guys? Is this
Absolutely.
like is Meet Near Me live? Like, do you have folks on the platform yet? Is it? I don't know if I've asked you that before. Or are you
Yeah,
still
it's a
kind of
good
building it
question.
out? Yeah.
The product it's gone through evolution. So, I had kind of alluded to this before. I was previously trying to do something like Eventbrite, where essentially, hey, you can sell tickets through the platform, you can manage registrations, and have like check boxes for do you want a free shirt with your whatever you're registering for, or something like that. What's your size? So we had done that, and then we pivoted. to focus more on publishers. And so the platform's been live for a long time, and then the offering for publishers is kind of in the newer stages, right? Like, I've gotten a lot of testing in place, and so I'm a software engineer, so I've been doing this stuff a long time, and so I have a kind of a high bar in terms of, quality and, like, functionality. I don't wanna put out something too early. So that said, uh, the current evolution into, like, what I had always envisioned, this, data aggregation, reducing toil for folks, is newer. And so the site's out there, but I'm in the early stages where it's important to note that, super interesting fact, I was so surprised by this. If you go to Facebook, you can search for events, but Facebook just wants to show you events from people that you're connected to that are going to these
Mhm.
events because it's trying to keep you on Facebook. But there is a Facebook page, hard to find, that shows, hey, you can search events. And this was unbelievable to me, but it's actually broken.
I
Like,
didn't know that.
it took forever for me to find it, and when I did, it turns out it's broken. Like, you start typing Austin, Texas, like, my example, like, doesn't work. I couldn't figure out how to make it work, and I'm
Huh.
a software engineer for 20 years. So that's kind of funny, but the point here is that when you go to Meet Near Me, likely today, for most people in most geographies, you're gonna see nothing listed because it tries to do something that Facebook and other platforms don't do well. They don't let you just, like, pick your location, pick a radius, show you events there. Like, Eventbrite wants to know, hey, we think you're in this area, and it shows you a bunch of data that could be wrong. Doesn't really do well with, like, let me plan my trip to Berlin or something like that. So a lot of people, when they come to the platform today, they won't find a list of events. So it's live, but we're still in the process of, like, finding the right markets. And so if you're in the right market right now, Austin is our first, like, project. Like, let's get all as much Austin, Texas data as possible. So if you're there, then you should see some events. And if you're not there, then my whole pitch is, I'm inviting you to partner with me. The platform helps you to curate those events in your area, as, to publishers or other folks who are listening.
What's the game plan like after, like, Austin? Do you have to go would you go, like, the next city over or something like that? How does that from your end,
It's
what how does that work?
The
Yeah.
cool part is I'm not really married to a next step. Essentially, the
Gotcha.
platform is well set up to ingest data from anywhere, literally, in the world. So, maybe it's Tokyo. I don't know,
Sweet.
but, the point is, it depends on, who partners with us and who wants to do he wants to aggregate this data and to benefit like we described. So, but yeah, it's well set up to be anywhere, and I'm just trying to stay, in the spirit of the startup mindset. I'm just trying to keep the one thing in front of me instead of 10 steps down the road. So I don't know which markets are coming next. I have no commitment right now. It's more depends on who hears about it and is excited and wants to go, find that data and bring it all together in one place.
What's, and you might have mentioned this, sorry if I missed it. Like, what's the business model? Is it a SaaS tool? Is there, like, a thing where you take a
Mhm.
percentage of something that happens on the platform or something like that? Have you thought
SaaS
about
in
that
the
stuff?
sense of it's SaaS in the sense of subscription.
Okay.
It's just a, you pay per month. That's the business model.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's just a tool that you pay monthly to use. And also worth noting is that this is not like, I'm in the stage where I'm trying to prove out that this is something that people care enough about to pay for. But it's always been my model to my vision to also include, there's a volunteerism component. And when I say volunteerism, what I mean is, like, people who are passionate about curating these events, you know, they don't have to pay for the embed code and be a publisher, right? Like, you can have your page and, on the platform and be curating events there, because I see that as part of community, right? Like, those people are volunteering, like, that data helps the platform, to have a better quality, right? Like, of curated data. And so I caveat that all just to say, those folks aren't my focus now. the focus is like, can publishers who have a revenue connected reason to use the platform, like get on board and use it, from a like a paid perspective. But yeah, the goal is always that we do this in a volunteerist kind of way where it's like, hey, the more people that contribute what they know about, like there's an open mic night that there's only 10 people that go, but it would be great if more people came. And I can put the URL in, and so that data will start to flow into the system. Maybe I'm the owner of that bar, and it's a really small bar. Um, so that's a vision. That's a part of the vision too. It's just that that's not currently my focus. And like I said, it kind of needs me to drive it from the top, like with Austin, to sort of make sure that people are really getting value in that area. But anyway, there's an open invite for folks, just with the caveat or apology that like if you're not paying right now, you're welcome to use it. Yet my focus is on publishers, So
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay. Awesome. Let's talk about AI, man. We've talked about it before we got on here. Like, is this, you mentioned several times how you've got a human in the loop, like you're having a researcher work with folks and everything.
Yep.
Is this thing, I'm just technical enough to make myself look dumb, really? Is this thing in the crosshairs of AI? To me, it does not seem like AI is anywhere close to being able to accurately do this kind of
No.
the same tasks that you're performing, but let's just anything open-ended AI question on that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good question. Yeah. I don't think it's in the crosshairs of AI because I actually think that when you think about it, if you let AI do this, what's going to happen is you're going to get a billion events that are virtual.
That's true. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's ways that they tag virtual events and you can filter those out for sure. But at the same time, I think the point is that at the end of the day, if you take that local pub that I just gave an example of that has an open mic night, the rise and fall of that event is something that is a little bit difficult to track without a human if you think about it. Essentially, like being in the know is kind of core to like what I am sort of building. And also, as you think about AI and the what I think is like cataclysmic impact on social media, right? Where like everything's AI generated and so people are just going to leave. Part of what I've done is I saw this coming and I felt like I wanted to focus on in-person connection and a tool that helps people to find that. Like I've been community oriented and I've run nonprofit organizations, done a lot of volunteerism over the years. To be honest, as a software engineer, a bit like I feel like gap in my life is when you work from home and all you need is a computer, it's easy to just get sucked into that world and to never leave, And so that's a big part of why I did this, right? Was that, hey, as more people work from home, and yeah, we have the COVID swell and then boom and bust of work from home, but work from home's not like going away. I've been working from home for 15 years, long before COVID. And so the work from home creates an interesting tension where you don't go to the office and see people face to face. So there's all the more pressure or need just from like a social perspective to get out of the house to see people. And so that's kind of part of it. And I think that, AI has a problem with sustainability. AI can boil the ocean in terms of like the amount of data that it scrapes and ingests and all that sort of thing. But if you just let it do what Google crawler does and sort of go infinite, it'll cost more than it pays, more than the company makes. And so I think that's essentially the challenge here is that, yeah, like the amount of data out there for events is huge. When a new like local bar appears with a new open mic night, per my example, there's no obvious way for AI to discover that that exists now, So and Google has the same problem. Like people think of Google as the authoritative index, but it's definitely possible to have something that never appears on Google, and
Right.
so that's kind of, I think, where. And if you also figure that events don't have a permanent shelf life, like maybe the local bar does that open mic night for a year and then they give up on that event because it's not seeing much, there's not a big crowd that shows up. So then you have outdated data, and with AI. And so that's why I think that the human in the loop is key. And I also think that AI is going to drive people to in-person connection, which is part of why I did this. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And AI is a weird thing because people have one thing or another in their mind, but I mean, there could be uses. I think of like there could be uses for little, like I could see doing a chat bot or something at some point,
yeah,
something like
it's a
that or whatever, little
it's a
add-ons
great
or
use
whatever like that,
case.
but not for the
Just don't be
core. Yeah.
Yeah, just don't be United.com. Like, last week I flew United and they pushed back my flight. I reached out. I got an AI agent and I said, like, I need to rebook. I'm in Santa Fe. I need to rebook out of Albuquerque because there's no Santa Fe is a really tiny airport.
Right.
I won't make it to my destination. And so it rebooks me, and then I realize I'm gonna miss that because of a traffic jam, and so I reach out, and I'm driving, and I said, "Please call me," and at this time, I didn't realize yet that I was dealing with
With a
AI.
chatbot, right.
Yeah, and so I was like, "Okay, call me." Like, "Can you please type your responses in the chat?" Like, I'm not realizing that it's like, well, because this is AI, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm like, "No, I can't type my responses in the chat. I'll get into an accident. I'm driving like a maniac trying to make the flight that you made me miss." Right? And I'm like, "Please call me." And it's like so and so, like, Tanya is typing or something, and it doesn't say that it's AI. It tries to lie and pretend that it's human.
That's
And
so
it's
enraging.
yeah, it was. And so Tanya's typing for a while, and then the message says, I tried to call you, but there was interference in the phone line. So AI hallucinated this nonsense because that's just
Interference in the phone line. Okay. Oh
yeah.
my god,
So it
that's great.
it makes up this lie, and at that point, and to the shame of United, I was like, I don't have time to get on a flight and to deal with this maze that I can't escape from. Right. So I discarded the ticket completely, booked another airline, got to the gate 10 minutes after boarding, barely made it to where I was going, and AI, like, almost made me miss this very important business meeting. So,
God. I Nothing enrages me more than when AI just bold-faced lies to me about something like that. I'm
I
like, "I
know.
tried
I
calling you,
know.
but there must have been some birds on the telephone lines or something." Like, okay, right." Uh, that's great. What am I missing? What else should we talk about around this? I mean, kinda piques my
Yeah.
curiosity on how the platform works and everything, but I'm sure you
Yeah,
think about it
absolutely.
a lot more than me. So,
Yeah, yeah. I think,
from the
like
perspective of a
okay.
publisher, maybe. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. From the perspective of a publisher, I think that, like, I I would love for publishers to reach out to me and to help me think through this problem. Like, I'm looking for partners essentially, right? Like, I'm looking for people who think that this will really make a difference in their newsletter. And I've talked to a lot of people who seem to really think that. Publishers who know, like you said, you kind of said it earlier, right? You said this is like a dirty little secret for a long time in news or whatever, is that people go there for the recurring, things like that.
Mhm.
Like the local sports events for kids or something. So what I'm looking for is folks who want to work with me because I'm early enough in the process that those folks can have an influence on the product and help me to see, blind spots or anything like that that I haven't seen. And maybe I'm missing something. But yeah, the idea is that for whatever you would pay me, it should more than pay for itself in increased subscribership and stickiness, so it should be a win-win. And essentially what I'm saying is I'd love for people to talk to me about how that might, if I'm not seeing something, if that's not true. I think, like, there's a great book called Lean Startup for anybody who hasn't heard of it, by I think Eric Ries. And in that book, he talks about experiment loops, and there needs to be a validation criteria. So the validation criteria is are people willing to pay for this? If the answer is that it's not worth, it's not providing more value than you're paying for it, then I'm going down the wrong path with this, and I'd rather know sooner than later, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of publishers, I think like that's my invitation to those folks is that it seems like, anecdotally, the guy I talked to with 1 million subscribers to his newsletter who said events is the number one thing that people click on. I think I've got a pretty good lock on the hypothesis, but I guess folks are busy and I'm not sure like why that wouldn't be of interest to people. But if that's the case, then I wanna understand that better and understand their pain points. Maybe there's some other pain point that I'm not thinking of that's the platform needs to be able to solve for these folks. I mean, I've already made it like very, very low friction so that it's kind of an automated system that's doing like your admin work for you. But if there's other things or gaps, those kind of things, this is a great time to just to talk to me, reach out to me on LinkedIn or whatever. Um, but yeah, I think, I think that publishing is gonna see an uptick. I think if you look at just newsletters in general, and this is, I think, part of the bet that you're making with your own work, right, in podcasting and doing that for other organizations, is that social media, I think, is going to get nuked from orbit by AI. Like, I'm not sure how long it will take to die, but I think it's going to die. And that'll push people to find connection like I'm doing in person, local news like you're doing with podcasting, and like our publishers who, folks that listen to this podcast are doing. So I think all of that is on the uptrend in terms of value. And I would say that folks who can't make it work, I talked to, I think he'll be cool with me mentioning him, Dan Ovshinsky, works with newsletters, and
Yeah,
he's like
Dan's been
kind of
on the pod. He's a friend of the pod.
okay,
Shout out to
nice.
Dan. Yeah, yeah.
He and I just talked, was it a couple days ago? Yeah, like Monday or something, a couple days ago. And so he works with those folks, and it's important to know I've been a designer for 20 years also, right? And if your design is bad and people just find your thing ugly and don't like it, I mean, not to be mean to people, but it's important to put attention to those details because I think there's a good opportunity where as people leave social media, they're gonna look to newsletters. I think that's what, looking at the guy I talked to has 1 million subscribers doing exactly that. I think that if you're positioned well and you do a good job, I think that there's opportunity there. So, I'm excited for small publishers because I think it's a chance for small publishers to start small and even do something big for the right ones. I think there's a lot of opportunity in the space because of the effect of people getting news from social media historically, right? Like that's the competitor for folks who are doing newsletters is Facebook or LinkedIn. And so I think as the attrition rate amps up on those platforms, it'll see people move that attention and that time and energy over to things like newsletters. So I'm excited. Like I love a good, it's like the Bob Marley song, if you are the big tree, we are the small axe. You know what I mean?
Nice. Yep. Yep. Well, cool, man. I think we covered a lot. What should I link to? What do you want people to go look at online or connect with you? Anything like that?
You can check out Meet Near Me. By the time this airs, we should have a little bit more of a funnel that will link to the marketing part that kind of explains it. But like I said, and I'll give you that link, it's just meetnear.me. So it's pretty easy to get, and you can include it in show notes or whatever. But aside from that, just link to my LinkedIn bio. I'm LinkedIn/in/Brian Feister, spelled Feister. So reach out to me there because, like I said, I'm really at the stage where I'm looking for people who are passionate about this and believe in the value. And then there's an open invite to help me shape the product in these early days. And so uh, I'd love for people to start conversations with me. Hopefully, I have a problem in a year from now where there's thousands of people and I can't have a conversation with all of them, but I'm not there at this point. And so, I'd love to chat with folks about what they're doing, how I can help.
Cool, man. I'll do my best to help out with that. Brian, thanks, man. And maybe we do this again if you, at some other point, if you want to do another update or whatever like that.
Yeah,
Love to have you on
yeah,
again in the
sure.
future too. Cool.
Yeah, cool, man. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I think like there's a lot to be said about AI. I kind of kept it like relevant to, I guess, publishers, where I think AI will help publishers
Yeah,
long term. You know
I
what
think
I
so
mean?
too. Yep.
But I think about it all the time. My day job, it's AI on top of AI on top of AI. It's just so much AI. So
Cool.
I'm very much thinking about it.
Right on. Thanks, man.
Thank you for listening to Small Press Big Ideas. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to help the show, the best thing you can do is to tell a friend or colleague and just take a few minutes to leave a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to right now. It only takes a minute out of your day, but it really does help the podcast grow and reach more ears. Check back for new episodes every Monday.